The few days leading up to Honor Flight Northern Colorado's September 15th send-off saw heavy rains and flooding unlike anything Coloradoans had seen before. With numerous road closings and stranded areas, some who were scheduled for the flight would be denied this time around. With our ability to get to Denver International Airport from our send-off point in Loveland in question, we correctly chose to press forward and expect the best. On a rainy September 15th morning, Honor Flight Northern Colorado board members, volunteers, guardians, and honored veterans gathered at the Embassy Suites Hotel in Loveland for the send-off ceremonies of our 11th trip to Washington, D.C. Guardians and veterans checked in and teamed up in preparation for the two-day excursion. Highlands Ranch, you say?
Yeah.
Do you have any trouble getting here?
No. We came up 25 all the way.
So you're a World War II veteran, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Navy?
Yes.
Where'd you serve at? In the South Pacific? Or?
All over. Sicily. Then we went on all the invasions from Tarawa up through Luzon.
So you saw a lot of action then?
Quite a bit, yeah. 10 invasions. A few supports.
What kind of duty did you have?
I drove a landing craft, LCVP.
Mm-hmm. Where were some of the places you landed?
Sicily, Tarawa, Kwajalein, Inuiatok, Guam, Leyte, and Luzon. And we made some night landings on Guadalcanal when we first came to the Pacific.
Thanks for going on the trip.
You bet.
I'm glad you made it in the weather.
That's a great thing you're doing here, I think.
You're going to really enjoy it. Walt, you say?
I'm Walt.
Okay, where are you from, Walt?
Well, I'm right here in Loveland.
So you didn't have too hard a time getting here this morning?
Not too bad. No. So it's a good time for me. I've turned this down about 3 or 4 times because I had an ill wife. So this time I'm going to make it.
You're going to enjoy it. Have you ever seen the memorial before?
No.
Yeah. It's really well done.
That's what I see. I did read a book about it, and it's amazing what they've done with that.
Where did you serve at, Walt?
In Europe.
Yeah. Army?
Army, infantry.
Any particular battles that you...
Well, we went through the Bulge, Siegfried Line, and took Koblenz, and ended up on the Czech border at the end of the war. So, and we helped liquidate Buchenwald, which was a horrible camp. I just can't imagine people doing that to people.
Yeah.
It was horrible. The most emaciated people I've ever seen in my life, and those that were living. And, happy to see us.
Oh, I'm sure. You had to refrain from giving them food and stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, right. Well, I can't imagine the kind of monsters that must have done that to people. That's horrible. I belong to a group here in town called PAMVATS, Proud American Military Veteran. And we have breakfast every Saturday morning, and there are usually 70 to 80 of us there. So.
Oh, wow. All World War II or?
No, they're all over.
All veterans?
We're getting some of the younger ones now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I like to see the younger ones getting involved with the older ones.
Well, you bet. Yeah. I want them all home.
So, Norm, where are you from?
I grew up Nebraska, and then I ended up Pueblo. And
So where did you serve at, Norm?
I was in the Navy on the aircraft carrier.
What years?
Well, it was like the last year of the war, 'cause we was tied up in the Philippines waiting to invade Japan when Harry dropped the A-bomb. I figured he saved my bloody life.
Well, you enjoy the trip.
Okay.
Maybe I'll talk to you when you get home. What is your name, sir?
Richard,
And where are you from?
Wheat Ridge.
Wheat Ridge. Did you have any trouble getting out of here today? Or?
No.
Yeah. We weren't sure what to expect with all the flooding. What years did you serve?
46, 7, and 8.
In
Guam,
Guam, Army?
Navy, Seabees.
Navy Seabees, good. What kind of duty did you have?
I was a mechanic. Worked on whatever was broken.
Have you ever been to the memorials before
In Washington,
in Washington?
it's going to be an experience for me. I appreciate the chance to go.
Thank you for your service. What's your name, sir?
Charles A. Jabauer,
And where are you from?
Akron, Colorado, a rancher, farmer, a pioneer. I'm one of 6 brothers in the military, all drafted but one. Lost one. 4 of us was in the Pacific. That one that I lost, the brother just older than I.
All in the Navy?
All
Or?
One in the Marines and 3 in the Navy. The brother I lost was on LST 695 hauling troops into Leyte in the Philippines. And my Marine brother was 4 years in the Pacific, was never allowed to return for 4 years.
4 years without leave, or is that?
That's correct.
Wow.
4 years without leave. 19 months on British Samoa, a leprosy island. The submarine hauled food and Marines in there, and they had about 4 P-38s, 4 or 5, and Corsairs about the same. They slip out and harass the Japanese, and their runway, they had false trees to slide in place, and they were there 19 months, and my folks didn't know they were alive. They could get mail in, but they weren't allowed to send mail out of there. And they brought their supplies at night, a submarine. I'm not the great one. I'm just the lighter one of the bunch.
You were all great. I mean, it was a joint effort of everybody. What kind of duty did you have?
I was just a drafted seaman on a AGS-4, Auxiliary Geographical Survey ship. I drove the captain's gig part of the time and worked all over the deck.
With this flight, we will have taken 1,437 veterans from World War II, Korean War, plus Purple Heart recipients from the wars in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Honor Flight Northern Colorado has established a policy that any donor of over $100,000 would be recognized by the naming of a flight. As you can see from the banner behind me, this is the Martin Glenn Family Honor Flight. recognizing Martin, Vicky, and the Lynn family for all that they have done, not only for Honor Flight, but for all our veterans. They not only got Honor Flight Northern Colorado started with a substantial founding donation, but they have been consistent and dependable donors and supporters throughout our almost 6-year history. They have repeatedly stepped in to give us a hand when it was needed. The Martin Lynn family and their enterprises have donated well in excess of $100,000, and more importantly, have supported us in so many other ways. It is my privilege to announce that this is the Martin Lynn Family Honor Flight and to acknowledge Martin and Vicki Lynn.
Thank you. I'll be real brief. This is a real honor. The word honor is correct for this room. When Stan came to me, had this little vision that he wanted to start the Northern Colorado deal. The first thing, I don't know any of those that you know about me, but I said, well, we better do it right for everything. And I think this is probably the most successful chapter in all of America. So congratulations to Stan. And my family is already on the flight. It's such an honor to get to go. And again, we thank you so much, and thank you so much for everything you've done for our family.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, low bombs bursting in air o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Somebody asked me the other day, they said, just yesterday, they said, well, do you think the honor flight will still be going? I mean, there's some flooding. And I said, these people crossed the channel. They will be here. And I said, if I'm on the right water, they're going to be there. And yesterday, sat in a Black Hawk helicopter with some of our finest National Guardsmen as the pilot on the chopper landed on a asphalt chunk of what was left of Highway 34. This guy put down a Black Hawk helicopter better than I could parallel park with no cars around. And he had a raging river on one side and a mountain on the other. And that's why this morning, look, we've got thousands of National Guards who are on active duty right now in Colorado. If you're in the Guard, if you're in the Reserve, please stand up, raise your hand. We want to recognize you this morning because you're working hard. When I attended this breakfast a couple of years ago for the first time, this send-off, one of the first people I met over the door right over there was a man who was in his 40s, and he came up to me and he said, I'm from Belgium. And I looked at him and I said, I was born in Belgium, he said, and I said, oh, is your dad here? And he said, no. And I said, well, do you have a relative who is going to Washington today? And he looked at me and he said, no. But he was here because without the people in this room, he wouldn't be here. He wanted to come and tell the veterans who gave him freedom, thank you. There are countless men and women in this room and across this country who we have never met, who we have never had the incredible occasion to get to know, but who stand on the front line of freedom and war, at peace, in great danger, to save the lives of people that they've never met, to ensure our freedoms continue, not just to our children, but to generation after generation after generation, knowing that they risk their lives for people who will never have the chance to come up and put their hand on their shoulders and say thank you. There are people in this room who didn't go to war, but who stood up in factories that made the machines of war, equipment that served as our liberty effort. We're eternally grateful.
As the buses were boarding for the trip to DIA, the rain was increasing and the threat of possible road closures was looming. Our usual Larimer County Sheriff escort would be absent for this trip with Northern Colorado rescue operations underway. But the Colorado Patriot Guard riders would not be denied the honor of escorting these local heroes. Through cold pouring rain, they led the way, stopping traffic when necessary and seeing to the safe travel of our caravan. As the procession of motorcycles and buses approached the Denver metro area, the rains had ceased. The veterans arrived at the Signature Air Terminal in cool but dry weather and were greeted by crowds of well-wishers, including military personnel from Buckley Field.
Quite a legend here in Colorado. He's been a squadron commander and a wing commander out of Buckley, and for the last, 7 years or so, he's been the Adjutant General of Colorado. And it's things like what's happened the last 3 days in Colorado when the guard people and everybody else that they can command under the purview of the AG gets things done. So it's my pleasure right now to introduce you to General Edwards. He'll say a few words before we get going.
Thank you, Colonel Cass. I really appreciate that, and thanks for letting me know that I went to the other academy. The Fort Carson helicopters, there are 8 of them that are up there assisting. We actually have a total of about 30 helicopters that are involved in this operation. Wyoming just sent 5 across to help us out, so this is a big, big effort when you look at what's going on with the flooding situation. And I tell you, I hope each and every one of you are okay, that your families are okay, because we worry about you. As Colonel Cass said, this is the biggest airlift response as far as rescues since Katrina. And who would have ever thought that that would happen in Colorado? But here we are. To all of the veterans, thank you so much for your service. This is such a great opportunity for us to give back to you, for the honor flight to give back to you, to take you back to DC, to enjoy the visiting of the monuments and to see the things that are built to honor your service. So our hats off to each and every one of you, and thank you so much for your service. To our World War II vets, you know, we stand on your shoulders, all of us do. We stand on your shoulders of what it means to preserve freedom and liberty and to make this great United States the beacon of hope that we are. So to our World War II vets, thank you so much. I see lots of hats out there that talk about Korea and talk about our Korean War vets. I'll tell you what, every time I talk to Korean War vets, I always want to say to you, thank you. And many of you have not gone back to Korea and you don't know really kind of what Korea is like right now. I've been kind of blessed in my career to have been in Korea 4 different times now, beginning in 1976 and the last time I was there in 2006. And if there is an example of what America committed to, the treasure that we lost there, South Korea is an amazing country. It is unbelievable to see how modern it is, to see the vibrant economy that they have, and to know how solidly they support the United States of America. So to our Korean War vets, thank you. Thank you so much. And then I know I see a sprinkling of those who have Korea, Vietnam, and then I know there are many Vietnam vets here supporting this honor flight. To our Vietnam vets, you know, the interesting thing to watch with Vietnam is that they are basically almost following the path of South Korea. Because as I speak to you today, there's this thing called the State Partnership Program that the National Guard does. And Vietnam invited the United States to have a state partnership program with them as they continue to push more forward towards a freedom and a capitalist type society. And so they are partnered with Oregon. So to our Vietnam vets, thank you for a job well done. And the other thing that I would say to our Vietnam vets is thank you. Thank you for changing the culture of America. Because you basically served in the military at a time when our nation was at odds and had a difficult time realizing that the military serves civilians and that it isn't the military that decides to go to war. It's our civilian leadership. We only answer the call as a military and we do our duty. And so to our Vietnam vets, again, thank you for changing the conscience of America to understand what that really means to serve in the military and for your sacrifice. Thank you. I'd like to shake some of the hands of the Guardians, but to all of the Guardians, thank you for deciding to be a part of this. Thank you for taking the time, for devoting the effort, because as you know, if you've done it before, these are priceless opportunities to spend time with those that have served and to hear their stories. And it just gives you a sense of the history, the personal history of the United States of America and what it means to be in the military. So to our Guardians, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
The arrival in Baltimore was no small affair, as the plane was greeted on the tarmac by a water cannon salute and more well-wishers greeting them as they walked into the terminal. Even standers-by in the terminal got involved as they realized the walking history that was present in their midst. After settling into their rooms at the Baltimore Hilton, the veterans and guardians were treated to an evening banquet, complete with a color guard and a keynote address from a military dignitary. The next morning came early as breakfast began serving at 0600 Eastern Time, as the buses would be leaving for Washington, D.C. at approximately 0830, where the first stop on our one-day tour of the memorials would be the beautiful World War II Memorial. The World War II Memorial is a beautiful tribute to the greatest generation heroes, with representation of the Atlantic Theater on the north side and the Pacific Theater on the south. Granite pavilions on both the Atlantic and Pacific sides house large, beautiful bronze eagle sculptures. The western wall consists of 4,000 gold stars, each representing 100 Americans who perished in the war. There are 56 columns adorned with sculpted bronze oak and wheat wreaths that represent the states and territories that contributed to the war effort. The sculpted rope that joins each pillar signifies the bonding together of a nation. Etched in the panels throughout the memorial are famous quotes by presidents, military commanders, and others whose words have gone down in history concerning the great conflict. Other etched panels and sections of the memorial serve as reminders of pivotal battles that were fought. The next stop on our tour was the U.S. Air Force Memorial. The beautiful grounds overlooking the Pentagon on one side and Arlington Cemetery on another made a great setting for our catered picnic lunch. The memorial itself stands tall into the sky depicting flight. The walls at each end tell the rich history of the U.S. Air Force. The next stop on the tour was the Korean War Veterans Memorial. The entrance to the memorial gives an almost eerie feeling as you walk beside the statues of soldiers on patrol. To the right is a holographic wall where the images seem to reach out to the visitors. The wall and field culminate at a beautiful pool surrounding a message reminding us that freedom is not free. Just across the park from the Korean War Veterans Memorial lies the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. A quiet and solemn atmosphere surrounds this long wall of names of those who were lost in the conflict. Guardians and veterans alike could be found looking up names of family members, friends, and comrades that never made it home. In between the Korean and Vietnam Veterans Memorials lies the Lincoln Memorial, which faces the Washington Monument, separated by a long reflection pool. The climb up to the image of Abraham Lincoln was no deterrent to many of the veterans. The last stop on the tour was the larger-than-life Iwo Jima Memorial, which depicts the planting of the flag at the top of Mount Suribachi. Taken from the famous photograph that became the icon of World War II, the statue has an added 13th hand representing the hand of God. After a long day of visiting memorials, the group returned to the Baltimore airport for their return flight home. The flight home started with mail call, where every veteran was given letters written personally to them by Northern Colorado elementary students. The rest of the flight showed no fatigue as the atmosphere was celebratory with conversations, singing, and dancing. Back in Denver, the veterans were once again helped from the plane and onto buses by military personnel from Buckley Field. The El Jabel bagpipers played and a line of salutes were given as the buses pulled away. About 40 hours after the excursion began, the buses pulled back into the Embassy Suites Hotel in Loveland, where family members and friends greeted the returning veterans. Each veteran received a quilt and a professional photo book of the memorials as they departed for home. Honor Flight Northern Colorado executes 2 of these flights per year and has currently taken 1,437 veterans to see their memorials. The trips are free of charge for all of our honored veterans. Funds are raised through tax-deductible donations managed by the Community Foundation serving Greeley and Weld County.
Oh, my good friend is Joanne. Very much traveling.
Okay. Yeah. Can they come? Absolutely. All right. There we go.
Oh, yeah, I probably got a couple.
Listen to that. No, we're the green belt.
Somebody in South Dakota.
Well, I wish we had more guys like you around.
I wish we had more guys like you around. You're the one.